Welcome back, Screenagers. We're here yet again. It's time for season 6 of the Canon. Can't believe that we're already 6 seasons in, over 80 movies, I think, at this point, or pushing 80 movies. We will be hitting our 100th episode at some point in season 6, which is very exciting. That's not this episode. That's not what we're here to talk about today. But we are back for season 6. My name is Raf. I will be your host for today and all other episodes this season, unless the Wasteland decides to fire me and relieve me of my duties as host of the Canon at some point over the next couple of weeks. But we have another essential movie lined up for you today. We're going to be talking The Wizard of Oz, if you couldn't tell by the title of this episode. And joining me today, one of our favorite Saw contributors. You know him, you love him, Mr. Jacob Holmes. Jacob, welcome back to the Canon. How are we doing?
Doing great. Thank you, Raf, for having me on. I think this is the first time I've been on the season, proper premiere of the Canon. And so, I was not expecting it when you're like, hey, we're ready to do Wizard of Oz. Like, okay, great. Awesome. Thankfully,
Yeah,
this is a
we're
movie that
jumping
is
in.
a little easier to, I think, prep for. So,
Yes, because it's a movie that I assume everyone has seen like a billion times, which I'm sure will be part of our conversation. But yeah, I'm not saying that there's a lot of pressure on you, but you do have to set the tone for what the rest of the season is going to be like. So take that and do with it what you will.
all right. I will do that. Yeah.
You
Setting the
were
tone.
on the season 5 finale. So this will be in people's feeds back-to-back episodes with you on. So it's really like nothing's changed. It's like you haven't left.
Like, I never left. I'm surprised that I'm the only one here. I thought we would have probably multiple guests for what is one of the most classic and influential movies of all time, but here we are.
Here we are. Maybe everyone thought like that movie's so popular, everyone else is going to want to be on. Um, so it was just one big game of chicken. But thankfully, we have you here to talk about this classic. Maybe the most influential movie of all time. Definitely one of the most influential movies of all time. It feels like this might be the most ubiquitous movie of all time. Like, I don't think anything exists in like the consciousness of the zeitgeist more than The Wizard of Oz, which again, we will be getting into. Before we jump into the movie proper though, because there's so much around this movie, I want to start with some of these questions first before we, start talking about the movie and its legacy and what makes it essential and all that. But the first thing I wanted to ask you about is a couple of weeks ago, at this point, there was some news that they were going to be doing screenings of The Wizard of Oz at the Sphere in Las Vegas. And for those screenings, they were using generative AI, whatever the hell that means, to like fill in the spaces and like enhance the aspect ratio of this movie in order to like blow it up on the Sphere's big screen. And some stills leaked from like what was happening, and it looked like absolute dog shit. Did you see any of the discourse that was going on the internet about this screening and these versions of The Wizard of Oz? And if you did, what are your thoughts on it?
So I'm not a big AI guy, especially where it comes into creative spaces. I don't think it's without its uses, but I'm just not big on AI in general, especially with some of the drawbacks of what it takes to run AI. So I will say though, generative
Shout
AI,
out Eddington 2025.
generative AI, the concept of it, like you've seen some of this before, probably in like people will take a photo that they have, and then they'll like basically expand the canvas beyond the borders of that picture, and like tell AI to fill in the rest. And there might be a version of that with the Wizard of Oz. So like the sphere is obviously not formatted in a way to see the Wizard of Oz in its regular format. So if you had a way to, with a good artist control over it, have some generative AI to fill out the sphere just for the peripheral, and that main image was still the movie, that would be one thing. The images that came out were like 80% of the frame was the new generative AI. And it took away, it like completely takes away from the actual cinematography and the artistic vision of the original film. So it's like sometimes you just have to say, this won't work in this way. You can't just completely tear up this technological just masterpiece of cinematography, and then just say, well, we'll just slap some generative AI to adapt it. And this is someone, I don't know why I made this decision. I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but I went and saw Dune uh, on an IMAX Dome theater for some reason,
Mm-hmm. The new
which,
Dune.
uh, but it was just the rectangle bent around the dome, and it didn't fill the dome. It was really a
Mm-hmm.
strange way to experience Dune. Um, but even that at least was not adding so much crap to the frame. I mean, it was bent up. It was not a good way to watch it, but it was better. I mean, what they did with Wizard of Oz is a travesty, especially considering how good this movie looks and holds up today. To just butcher it for that
Yeah,
format.
there was no reason to do any of that, right? It lacks any sort of artistic integrity, or it also doesn't like expand on the artistic integrity of this movie. It's just a cheap cash grab, of like, we can do this and we can do this with this AI stuff, and you can see it on the screen, and it's like pretty much everything has become the line from Jeff Goldblum's Dr. Ian Malcolm character in Jurassic Park, where he's like, your scientists were so concerned with whether or not they could do it, they didn't stop to think about whether they should do it. And that's just like everything that we seem to be doing uh, in and outside of movies. But like this Wizard of Oz at the Sphere feels like a prime example of that.
And here's the
Um,
thing: the sphere is a marvel, and the Wizard of Oz is a marvel. When things are put displayed on the sphere that are designed for the sphere by artists, it's amazing because it's a spectacular format for things that were designed by artists for the format. But when you just try and
go see the Grateful Dead there.
it's
That's
like
perfect. Go
it's
see
like
them.
seeing Dune on this McQueen Center IMAX dome, which uh is like a kid field trip in Birmingham basically. But I remember going there as a kid and seeing the IMAX dome film documentaries, that were those are incredible on that dome. But they're built for that. You can't just
Yeah.
retrofit anything to that dome. And using AI to do it just adds insult to injury too.
Such a shame that that happened and that we all had to experience that. But it seems like it's mostly over. Hopefully, we don't have to worry about things like that happening in the future. I'm sure they will, but for now, we can pretend that it's not something that we'll have to deal with anytime in the future. Maybe some happier Wizard of Oz adjacent questions. I guess the other big thing that the Wizard of Oz has been in the news for recently, or been sort of like top of mind, is Wicked, and the release of that movie from last year and the part two coming out this year. Have you seen Wicked? Are you excited for part two? Have you ever seen the play? What are your thoughts on Wicked? And then I guess from there, we can maybe try to backtrack our conversation back into the Wizard of Oz proper.
Sure. I've never seen the musical. I quite enjoyed the first movie more than I thought I would based on the trailers. Was very happy with its
Hmm.
Best Picture nomination. I think it was a very strong film, one of my favorite films from last year. Not the very top, but I think in the top 10. Um, because it's just a fun time. That being said, based on people who know the musical, the second act tends to fall a little flat. So we will
Hmm.
see. I do have faith though that John Chu and his team uh, knew that going in to this story and are going to take a lot more liberties with part two than they did in part one. Best case scenario is that they're going to basically fix Act Two so that it doesn't fall flat after that incredible
Hmm.
opening that ends on Defying Gravity. Um, and if it's good, if critics like it, and if audiences love it, um, and it pulls in the box office, I think it's a very strong contender to be a Best Picture nominee once again, and really rake in awards. A lot of people are doubting Wicked Part Two, and it's looking like a strong slate this year. But I think that it will be, if it's good, if it sticks the landing, I think it has a really good shot.
I think so too. It seems like I haven't seen the first one, but I, from what I've heard, most people who have seen Wicked really enjoy it. A lot of people in my like personal life who I'm their like movie friend or their like movie going person, um, their cinephile friend, they're all like, "Yo, you haven't seen Wicked? Like, I thought you were a movie guy. You would love it." So I gotta watch it for all the normies in my life. Um, Maybe I'll see it before part two, but I also have a sneaking suspicion that I wouldn't not like it, but I don't want to, you know, count the movie out before I actually see it.
Yeah,
And I think part of the reason why,
I was just gonna say I think it is one of those movies that you do have to see it before you can judge it fully because I thought I had the same sneaking suspicion until I saw it. So it's one of those that's up in the air.
yeah, well, that's a different movie. That sucks. But I was gonna say, I think people like that movie. I don't get it. It's so dull. But neither here nor there. I was going to say that part of my suspicion for why I don't think that I would like Wicked that much is because I do have such a fond place in my heart for The Wizard of Oz. I feel like it's hard to find someone who dislikes this movie. So if you are listening and you think that like The Wizard of Oz is overrated or not deserving of its place within cinematic history, like please reach out to us. We want to know who you are and what your thoughts are, because that's just like interesting and not something that I've heard in my 33 years of walking this earth. But Jacob, I think I want to start with, for me, rewatching this movie for this, I realized that this was the first time in my life that I watched this movie without any television commercials and also not being accompanied by Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. This was the first time I just like sat down and watched this movie front to back as a movie. Was that the same for you?
So I did not get to do a full rewatch for this podcast, and honestly, um, I have no recollection of when I've watched this movie front to back. Um, but it makes sense that, especially without ads, because we would have seen it growing up as a kid. Now, I think I probably have a little bit different deal with that because my mother is was traumatized by the Wicked Witch and the Flying Monkeys as a child. So she did not
Fair.
like the Wizard of Oz, and therefore it was never playing in my house. However, honestly, maybe the I'm sure I've seen this movie a couple times front to back at some point.
Hmm.
Um, but my best recollection of watching the story front to back was my father-in-law and sisters-in-law were in a community theater production of the story. And I can't
Nice.
remember. I think one of my sisters-in-law, she was pretty young, so I think she was like a munchkin. Um, I
Hmm.
don't think I don't I don't think the other one was like any main character either. But then my father-in-law was the guard at the Emerald City. Um,
Nice.
so
And you were Dorothy or the wizard?
I was in the audience for that one, although I have partaken in community.
One of the apple throwing trees?
I have not done community theater, but I have done high school theater at times. But yeah, no, but that's really. Um, but I think this is a movie that we all kind of get through osmosis, similar to. I think we were talking about Snow White. Um, it's one of those movies that's so dominant and
Hmm.
influential in pop culture that we get it through osmosis. And so when I was watching that play, I realized just how many like sayings and like lines have carried over into everyday life. It's like I didn't realize I didn't think about it, but that's from Wizard of Oz too. And it's like, man, we that is talk about a movie that's had a lasting impact. It's insane.
Yeah, rewatching it this time around, I also forgot about how many things like so many lines that obviously are from this movie, and also lines that are not as obvious that they're from this movie, but are used like all the time. Right now I'm thinking, lions and tigers and bears, and it took me a moment rewatching to be like, oh yeah, that is from this. But then also like the line like, "I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too." That's like something that kids say to each other on playgrounds, like all across America and like probably all across the globe. And you forget that it's like all from this movie. And there's so many just like images and like so much iconography from this version of the story and like from this movie, that because we've all lived with it for so long, like generations upon generations, it's weird to like go back and rewatch this movie and be like, oh yeah, that's where all of this stuff comes from. And like it seemingly all have the same like shared experience of having watched The Wizard of Oz at some point, mostly through TV. I think this was like one of the first movies to ever be featured on like primetime television. I want to say in like the 50s. So pretty much like from like boomers on, like most of us, our first experience or like only experiences with watching this movie were catching it on television at some point or another. Which is why I said the thing about like, this is the first time I've watched this movie without commercials. And it was so weird because you like know in your like body, like where the commercials come in, like where the commercial spots are. You're like, oh, this is, there were points where I was like naturally like, this is where I go up to like get a glass of water because like I've known that this has always been a commercial break for the last 30 years of my life watching this movie. Super, super, super weird, which I guess you're one of the few people who hasn't experienced that or doesn't have that, um, didn't have that like understanding of the movie growing up.
It's very strange. I just like. I mean, um, that's one of the things where like the lines. I mean, even more iconic lines. Probably, there's no place like home, and I don't think we're in Kansas
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Kind of stuff. Like, that's just you hear that all the time, and those are from Wizard of Oz. And um, but I'm never sitting at home watching this movie as a kid because that's not. My family didn't watch it because my mom was.
Yeah.
Scared. I don't know. Maybe I watched it when I was a teen at some point because I knew that
Mm-hmm.
it um, was so influential. At some point, I was like, I want to watch this. So maybe I watched it by myself. But it's so hard to pinpoint. It's just one of those movies where it feels like you've never lived not knowing it. So
Yeah,
it's
like you've known it forever. It's known you forever. all that stuff. So I guess to talk about the movie a little bit, I guess the most influential thing in this movie is the use of color. So it wasn't the first movie to use like the new Technicolor technology that was being rolled out around this time in Hollywood, but it is probably the most famous use of it. Is that a fair assumption?
Probably. I mean, it's just such a popular movie anyway. And as far as it feels like now, of course, we weren't there at the time, but it feels like this wasn't the first Technicolor film, but it was the first film to be like,
Hmm.
y'all understand what Technicolor can be? Like, we're going to
Yeah.
take you to a freaking Emerald City where the colors are freaking yellow, and we're going to give you the brightest red shoes you've ever freaking seen. It's just like, and freaking lollipops and a pink witch. I mean, it's like you're going to feel Technicolor. Um, and
Yeah.
obviously a huge reason it became a success. It wasn't a success when it opened. I mean, it was actually a box office flop, basically, um, which is crazy. Of course, it also came out the same year as Gone with the Wind, but which was one of the best box office movies ever. But it certainly found its place in pop culture relevance um, since then. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the color of this film is just spectacular.
It came out at an interesting time, right? 39, we're kind of on the heels of the back end. We're kind of coming out of the depression, and you have this movie about this place of like all this opulence and color, and it's full of life and vibrance in all these ways that like the real world was not really full of all that. Like our real world probably felt more like the sepia tone Kansas of the beginning part of the movie and the end of the movie, even though that ends up being like the place where Dorothy is supposed to be all along. But it probably was just like a weird time in American history for this particular movie to be coming out. And then I'm sure also like people probably were just like not ready for the technology of Technicolor to be used the way that it's used in this movie. And I obviously like there were other movies that were using the technology and like were highlighting the greens and yellows and blues and reds and stuff that you can show with this kind of coloring technology. But obviously the big thing that sets this movie apart is the switch from the like sepia tone of the Kansas real world into the vibrant color of the Wizard of Oz world, whatever. I don't know. Is it just all Emerald City or
No, I mean it's Oz. Yeah, like there's
whatever?
because they go to the Emerald City on the Yellow
Oh,
Brick Road,
Oz.
whatever. They pop into
Yeah.
Munchkin Land, I
Okay.
guess.
Um. Yeah.
But
Yeah. But like it's the switch that was really like that's like the main draw.
I mean, and talk about yeah, like you said, coming out of the Depression, there. I'm guessing in '39 there were probably some rumblings of the war that was brewing in Europe. And just talk about like the most like seminal like thing on screen to be like this is an escape. Like here we are in our little
Hmm.
sepia world, but look, you can be transported into this land of color and magic and where half of your villains get defeated just by showing up. Um, you got one villain out of the way before the movie even gets going, um, and then your other villain, you just make a couple friends, and the other villain's defeated with a bucket of water. So just very like, I mean, yeah,
It's funny because it is this escape, but at the end of the day, like the escape is bad. But people probably still needed an escape during this time because life still sucked. So it was like, no, there is no place like home, but also home kind of blows right now because we have no money and it seems like a war is starting. And That's not fun. So like maybe we do just want to stay in the Emerald City, but you're telling us we can't.
It's yeah, it's funny, like, because obviously that clicked, like the click your heels 3 times, and there's no place like home, and you have to go back and deal with reality. Like people didn't miss that, but at the same time, it's like
Mhm.
when people really talk about the Wizard of Oz, it's almost like you're only talking about the Technicolor portion of it. Like no one really talks about all that stuff in the sepia tone part of it. They're like, yeah, yeah, the witch was, Miss Gulch or whatever. She's mean old lady, whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, the Wicked Witch, it's all in the Technicolor part that people really stick
Yeah.
with, and so it's not that they missed the point of the film, but
Although
that's what stuck.
I will say, I don't know if it's the most impressive part of the movie, but certainly one of my favorite parts is Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is a freaking banger. Like that song hits. And that's in the sepia tone Kansas portion of the movie. So there is
True, and
that.
yeah, true, and that part of the that song is just also just notched a cultural uh, spot in our history. Like, I mean, that song has never lost relevance. We've no one, that's still made, it's still popular today. People are still hitting back to that. So,
Yeah.
um,
When that
I would
song
say,
started during my rewatch, I literally sat up in my seat. I was so excited for it.
dude, I didn't do a full rewatch for this episode, but it wasn't that long ago. I sat down to rewatch this movie. I didn't get to finish it. I actually didn't get to. I don't think I got to Munchkinland, but
Oh
I
wow.
do remember on that rewatch when I sat down to rewatch it, I was like, okay, there's going to be this sepia part at the beginning where she's like in Kansas, and it's going to probably be like a little boring before we get to Oz. But the camera techniques and things like that, like, a lot of these movies at this time, even ones that are considered great, I have a hard time with, especially when you have like very static cameras, especially movies that came a little later, I guess, in more
Hmm.
like the 50s, where you have this very staged camera and the transatlantic accents. And this movie just
Hmm.
feels, I mean, other than the fact that it's sepia tone at the beginning, it doesn't really feel out of place at all. Like it just feels like, man, I'm sitting here watching this sepia uh, portion, and I'm like, this cinematography is on point and like really great. I did not expect to be that invested in that portion, and it got me. So
It kind of has to get you because it's surprisingly long. It's like
it,
20,
it is a
25
lot longer than I
minutes.
thought it was going to be. Yeah,
You sit down to rewatch and you're like, this is what, like 10 minutes of the movie before we get to Oz? Like, no, you're there for a solid like 20 minutes before you get there. So like it has to have like a little bit of juice, a little bit of sauce to in order to like keep you in and keep you invested until we eventually get to the land of Oz. And once we get to the land of Oz, the the shot of like when she opens the door and it's that Technicolor land on the other side is just like one of the most absurd shots in movie history. Like that must have been one of those moments where like when they were like getting the dailies or whatever and then like did like the coloring on the back end, like the color correction, all that stuff, they were like, this is this is wild. Like we just created like one of the best movie moments of all time. Uh
I mean, and the
like I
crazy
wonder
thing,
if they were thinking that.
and the crazy thing is too with that, with their limited abilities. I mean, like they had to do that as like they had to make everything sepia colored in full color in order to do that, including Judy Garland or her stunt double or whoever it is that's shot there from the back
Mhm.
going through that doorway, because they couldn't just combine like a sepia area and a colorful area. So they had to do, I forget what they had to do. It was probably something that was super not cool and very damaging, as most of the things behind the scenes of this movie ended up being, which I don't think this Canon episode needs a whole lot to go into, because I think everybody at this point knows. Um, the actress
Do,
who played.
do we want to talk about that
I mean, we could. I
a
mean,
little
I
bit
think
now,
it's
or do we want
worth.
to save that for the?
I mean, are we gonna? Are we? I mean, it's a Canon podcast about the Wizard of Oz. It's like you have to talk a little bit about the creation of it and the many problems. But it's like you don't need to dedicate too long because everybody kind of knows. Um, what were you
Yeah,
thinking
well, why don't you
about?
just go through some of the things just so we get it out of the way since we've already
Yeah,
brought them up.
yeah. So, what's her name? Margaret Hamilton. Is that the name of the Wicked Witch actress? I think
Hmm.
I need to pull that page up. Okay, yeah, Margaret Hamilton. I know she suffered like third degree burns on set somehow. I think it had something probably to do with the paint on her skin. I know the Tin
It's that
Man.
scene where she so there was like that scene where she like disappears in like a like puff of smoke or
Yeah,
whatever through like the trap door. That smoke is what burned her, but she also there were issues from like the makeup because I think they used like copper for the green makeup that was also like irritating her skin. But sorry, keep going.
yeah. No, they use silver paint on Tin Man with aluminum dust, which caused severe health issues there. Like he had long problems and hospitalization. Judy Garland was like drugged up the whole time, and being abused behind the scenes. Um, Gosh, wasn't there? I think there was asbestos um, everywhere. Of course, that was a different time, but that was used to make the snow and for flame proofing the roofs. I mean, there was just all kinds of stuff, both bad for its time and bad looking back. Um, but
Yeah.
this movie was rife with abuses and problems and bad treatment of actors, and that should not go completely unnoted when discussing the masterpiece of the result. Doesn't justify a lot of the stuff that happened behind the scenes. Um, Plus, you get the myths about it, like you can listen closely or somewhere over the rainbow or something and hear a munchkin hanging themselves or something. Like, I don't. There's some kind of myth about the munchkin
Th-
hanging. I think I've
there's a
heard it a
myth that
million
in
ways.
one shot, in some shot, there's a munchkin who like hanged themselves in on the set in like the forest, but it was just they had like all these like cranes and like wild birds that they brought onto the set just to like make Oz look more like a crazy place to live, and people were mistaking like a crane far off in the background as yeah, like a much more what would be a much more unfortunate image for people to see. But yeah, because it was like there were like pretty cursed vibes on the set of this movie, like people then obviously like took that and ran with it. There were some like really messed up things that happened to a lot of the people who were involved. There were probably like tons of accidents and stuff because there weren't like the proper like worker protections for the people building the sets and all that stuff. um but it's a it gave us a classic. Which,
It
like you
did,
said, not to say that like those things are excusable because we get
and
a classic. But like
it
we
was
acknowledge that they happened and that they were bad, and that we have a classic movie that is essential and we need to talk about
unfortunately it
as
was
being part of the canon.
probably pretty widespread kind of stuff in Hollywood at the time. And Wizard of Oz is just such a big movie that it gets extra reported. Or you could argue that
Hmm.
Wizard of Oz learned all the wrong lessons, and you could and say Hollywood learned you can do all that stuff and make a masterpiece and make a ton of money. But again, if that's the lesson, that took a long time to learn because it wasn't initially it was a flop. So, initially they definitely weren't thinking.
Yeah.
Um, can you imagine like Judy Garland and Margaret Hamilton and stuff after going through all that crap, and then that for initially, and it's like it's a flop. it's like it's like we went
Yeah.
through all hell to make this movie.
It's like no one even cares to see it. But now, almost 100 years later, they're they're two guys talking about it for a Screen Age Wasteland podcast, so all is well. So once we're in Oz, I feel like we should talk about the lovely characters that Dorothy meets along the way. The Tin Man, the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion. Probably the most fun elements of the movie. Um, which of those three is your favorite and why?
I I think if I had to pick, I think I would probably lean towards the Scarecrow just because I kind of like the daffy good-heartedness of him because obviously he's lacking a brain and he's just kind of got that, and then the fact that he's made of straw, so he's got that kind of mannerism that matches his brainlessness where he's almost like, carefree, um can't really think straight. He can't barely walk straight either, so he's just kind of flopping around and being sort of silly. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I would go with the Scarecrow. Who would you take?
I don't know. I was just thinking though, the Tin Man is easily the worst of the three. I have no love for
Hmm,
the Tin Man, unfortunately.
that's
No
interesting. That's
love.
interesting.
Huh.
And again, I haven't rewatched it in particular recently, but I would have probably been just choosing between the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. The Tin Man is, I mean, a little rigid because he doesn't have a heart for one. But there was like a kind of softer side that that actor gave him that was kind of there.
Hmm.
That I don't know if I love the Cowardly Lion as much, but I mean, he has that raw,
Interesting.
um
Yeah, he has that great song, "If I Were the King of the Forest." I feel like growing up, I liked the Cowardly Lion the most. I just thought that he was the most fun of the three, and I probably am also a bit cowardly, so maybe I identified with that. But I feel like now as I get older, I identify more with the Scarecrow because I feel dumber and dumber with each passing day. And I'm like, I don't have a brain. But maybe there is something there, sort of similar to him, which I guess is the point of like all three of those characters, right? That they think that they're lacking this particular quality or aspect of what makes them human, even though they're not humans, any of them. Um, but in the end, they all find out that it was like within them all along, which is kind of also the same for our main character. Like she always could have gotten home. Um, so like maybe the lesson at the end of the day isn't that um, sepia tone colored Kansas is the place where you're supposed to be, but just that like home is like a part of you no matter where it is that you go. I don't know. I'm rambling. I don't know if any of that makes sense or like
I mean,
what
I
you
think it's
think the
nice.
big
I think
takeaway
it's a
is
nice
from
thought.
this movie.
I think it's a nice thought, and for some reason, until I'm sure I thought about this in the back of my mind, but until you talked about just kind of meeting these 3 folks along the way, this is really just like, I mean, this came out in 1939, and I'm sure there were other things before this that would maybe qualify, but really this is like the first great film epic in, like, America, like a fantasy
Mhm.
epic. I mean, it's the basic, because I mean, the locations that they're going to the Emerald City, but they have all these adventures and stops along the way, and you feel that journey throughout this movie. It's one of the problems I had with something like Moana. I felt like there weren't quite like enough stops to really make it feel like a
Yeah.
big journey. But this is like kind of, I mean, obviously not setting the stage for the book The Lord of the Rings, although I'm not sure whether the classic Wizard of Oz book influenced the Lord of the Rings book, whatever. But from a movie
Yeah.
standpoint, this is very similar in a lot of ways to Lord of the Rings. I'm without some of the war and and some of that stuff. But
Yeah. Have you read the book, the original book for this?
no, I have not.
I read it years ago. I think I read it in like 4th grade, so I don't remember it at all. But that is an interesting point. And while you were saying that, I was sort of thinking, so this probably won't come up in recommendations because I'm literally just thinking about it right now. But have you ever read or watched Dragon Ball? Like the early episodes of Dragon Ball where young Goku is like he goes off on a journey and he like meets people along the way is like kind of very similar to like Dorothy landing in Oz and then like going on this journey, just like going down this path literally and meeting people along the way. And Dragon Ball is famously based off of an old like Chinese folktale that I don't know the name of, and I'm sure there are like all of our anime fans or fans of like Eastern fiction are like yelling into their computers right now, listening to this. But yeah, it's interesting how this movie is sort of like the template for a lot of those things. But it is, again, comparing it to like Dragon Ball and all that other stuff, it is like very much so one of those 3 or 2 basic versions of a story of like stranger comes to town and then you just sort of go from there. Like that's very much so the tale of our main character here. What do you think of and like what do you make of Dorothy as a protagonist and like a main character? Is she just like a vessel for us to like get to all this other great stuff? Do you think that she herself is a great character? Like what do you where does she stand in your brain?
Yeah, I mean, from where I can really think of her right now, she does kind of come off as like a vessel, but I mean, she has her own arc to learn. And again, it's been a while since
Mm-hmm.
I rewatched, but obviously some of this stuff that's working out in Oz has to do with things that she needs to work out in Kansas. So thankfully, she does go on an arc, but in the same way, in all the ways, she's also a vessel for us to explore Oz, and because she knows nothing about Oz, and so she's that, and that's
Mm-hmm.
become another archetype where if you're going in a fantasy world and you're establishing it, one of the great ways to reveal that is plopping in a character that doesn't know anything about it, because that's where the audience is. So, um, which is so much better, because one of the fantasy problems I have is I cannot get into a fantasy world, whether it's a book. Movies don't tend to try and do this the same way, but like fantasy books in
Mm-hmm.
particular are bad, where it's like you need to understand there are 7 kingdoms, and this kingdom is based on, okay, so he's like mountains, and but you have to understand his brother, with like 7 years before this story starts, his brother. I'm like, I I'm lost. Like, well, you're gonna have to take me through like something at the ground level, and then when things happen that I need to
Mm-hmm.
understand some context for, if that character doesn't understand it, then you can be like, well, here's the deal. Like Dorothy shows up in Oz and her house, she's like got feet sticking out of her house, and the witch is like, yeah, you're. Well, that was the Wicked Witch of the East, but your house stomped her. And there's this other sister she has in the West that's gonna be super pissed, and you're gonna have to deal with her now. So you
Yeah.
probably should get your butt to Oz, which is this Emerald City over here, uh, you know, and follow this yellow brick road, and then she just meets some people. Like that's the way to do a fantasy story, in my opinion, is build your world
Yeah. I mean,
as the journey moves along.
in Lord of the Rings, we learn about Middle Earth with Frodo. It's it's not really the case, but you could say in Dune, like you learn about Arrakis with Paul as he like shows up there or whatever. But you brought up a couple things that I wanted to ask questions about. One, what do you think happens if you walk down the red brick road instead of the yellow brick road? Where does that lead you? Do you go south? What happens in the
So
south of Oz? We know there's a wicked witch of the east and one of the west, and we sort of visit both of them, and we know that she goes north to the Emerald City, but we have no idea what happens in the south, and we have no idea what happens if you follow the red brick road.
so my assumption with the South has always been very simplistic. There's wicked witches of the East and West, so there must be good witches of the North and South. Even though I don't guess we ever really hear about the good witch of the South, um, we definitely don't hear about a wicked witch of the South. So there's either a good witch or no witch, probably. Um, they're just
A
chilling,
neutral witch of the south.
chilling. They got 99 problems, but a witch ain't
Yeah.
one. Uh, uh, and so like I said, in my recent rewatch, I didn't get to the Oz part. Well, I did get to watch. I don't know if I
Hmm.
watched it separately, but I did watch the scene of her going through the door and like seeing the
Hmm.
Oz for the first time. So I get, is there a red brick road and there's a yellow brick road? I mean, I'm guessing
Yeah,
based on the
there's
question.
they don't really talk about it, but it's there. Like when she starts walking and it's like the little like spiral path of the yellow brick road, there is also a spiral path of a red brick road. And I don't know if I've always been curious or if it was just something that popped up in this most
That's a
recent
really
viewing.
that's a really
And it
interesting
really
question.
serves no purpose, but
You know, it's funny
I was
because it's
curious.
probably
I
a
just maybe because
simple.
I've gone down the yellow brick road.
Well, yeah, it's like it's. I mean, and this movie also has so much in common, especially with the film version of Alice in Wonderland. It's just like the rabbit hole. Like the yellow brick road is one
Hmm.
rabbit hole, so then that means like if you see another one, you're like, well, what's down that rabbit hole? But the
Yeah.
red brick road is kind of probably honestly just there for like a visual, like visually good looking.
Yeah.
But it also brings up an interesting thing for like Wicked because you haven't seen Wicked yet, but it's like the yellow brick road is kind of just like all of Oz is yellow brick road, which also kind of
Mm,
is like if you're following the yellow brick road, shouldn't it not go everywhere because you're gonna get like
yeah.
lost. I guess if all the yellow roads eventually lead to the Emerald City, then you're good. But you would get confused if someone said, "Hey, follow the yellow brick road," and then you get down to like a fork with like four different yellow road, like the road splits. You'd be like, "What the hell? These
She
were awful
does
directions."
with the scarecrow. And the scarecrow's like, well, some people go left, and then some people go right, and some
Right,
people go both. And then I don't even know if we really see which way they end up going.
right,
Which again,
exactly.
like none of this is like all that important. It's just like a fun moment to meet this new character. But yeah,
But it's like
all of the yellow brick roads lead to Emerald City.
Dorothy in that moment should have been like, "What the hell, witch? Like, you told me just to follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah,
You didn't tell me it was gonna fork off." It's like
useless directions. Yeah,
imagine
you didn't tell me like stay like go
coming
like
to
northwest
America.
at this fork.
An immigrant comes to America, and you're like, "Oh yeah, just follow this black road that has the yellow line in the middle. Just follow the road." Like
Yeah, and
all the roads look
eventually you'll
like
get
that.
to California. Yeah. So the other thing that you brought up that I wanted to ask you about is when Dorothy shows up to Oz, her house lands on the Wicked Witch of the East and kills her. And then her sister shows up and she's like, I will get my sweet revenge on you, which is pretty understandable, right? Like, I get that she is a wicked witch in her everyday life, but her motivations for being upset with this girl seem pretty founded.
Y-
Like this girl
yes,
did just kill her sister.
yes, and no. Like yes, like she should be upset. It's like her state of mind is valid, but also like
Hmm.
obviously Dorothy had zero control of the house. Like she just happened to be in the house when the tornado picked it up and dropped it on her sister. So like even though she's valid to be upset, like she doesn't have any real reason to like Dorothy was not responsible. So you know
She wasn't
maybe
driving the house.
if Oz has like a civil lawsuit problem, but then you get into jurisdictional issues because like Dorothy's from Kansas and the tornado started in Kansas. So,
Yeah.
if there maybe Oz has codes about like tornado proofing your house, but if Kansas doesn't have those laws, it's really tricky
Yeah.
interdimensional law.
Does tornado insurance cover any damages that you would be liable for in a lawsuit about killing a witch with ruby red slippers? Do you know in the book the slippers are silver and they change it to red for the movie
I
because obviously it pops so much more, which
Yeah,
is like duh looking back on it, but like that
right.
was such a good choice.
I only know that because the slippers in Wicked are silver, and I found out that that was actually based on the original book, which is of course in the public domain, versus the
Hmm.
movie, which is not. and I'm not sure if they did that just because they can't technically use that from the movie, or if they did that just to change things up and honor the original book. It might be that way in the musical because of the copyright. It's very confusing, but I think the Ruby Red Slippers might make
Hmm.
an appearance in the next version, in part
Next
two.
Wicked movie.
Yeah, the Ruby Slippers. So
Ye-
the Ruby Slippers were changed for the movie, which is obviously one of the most iconic choices of all time, because the Ruby Slippers
Yeah,
are a super iconic movie prop item, um, and they just
it's
look so dang
top
good in
five.
Technicolor. Maybe, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe. Um,
like Indiana Jones's whip and the Falcon from the Maltese Falcon. But I don't even know. Like, yeah, the Ruby Slippers have to be top five. Um, okay, so the Wicked Witch of the West, obviously a great character. Do you have any other thoughts on her?
just in general, Margaret Hamilton, absolutely phenomenal job of portraying her. Just that iconic, like voice that she has, and that look just cemented the character. I might as well pull out just for the sake while we're on her. It's my only Wizard of Oz pop. The Wicked Witch.
Oh, nice,
This is not a
nice.
Wicked pop. This is actually Wizard of Oz, so that's cool. Um, and
Oh, sweet.
actually she came with a flying monkey. I wonder where that is at, but it's not sitting right next to her. So oh well. Um, but
The
yeah,
flying
like
monkeys understandably scarred a lot of people, including your mother.
yeah, they the in the original version especially they come off pretty pretty freaky. But the Wicked Witch are arguably also one of the most iconic movie villains of all time. Maybe top five. I mean, you got Darth Vader that you would probably say. Um,
Hmm. The
maybe
Terminator, maybe.
maybe Maleficent is up there, although Maleficent
Yeah.
is also a green witch lady. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, maybe now some people might try and put Thanos up there. I don't know if he's been around long enough to quite cement that, but I mean, the Wicked Witch of the West is
Needed like 8 movies to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Wicked Witch of the West is like the boogeyman of all boogeymen from like the start. I mean, she's just
Yeah.
vile and wicked and really scary. I mean, she is scary in this movie. Like this movie does not pull back for kids. I mean, she's pretty freaky. Also, very interesting that that flying monkey became a psychology term. You know, for someone who is like a henchman of a like a manipulated henchman.
Yes. Yes. I was doing a little bit of like prep for the show, and one of the pieces that I came across was a like psychological breakdown of this movie through the prism of, and I can't cite the person because I didn't write it down and I don't remember, but I apologize. But it was about like how the Wicked Witch is like a narcissist who is trying to essentially like gaslight the Dorothy character, and like drag her down, and then talking about like the origin of the flying monkey term from this movie as like the flying monkeys being like henchmen for and like doing the bidding of the narcissist against whoever it is that they are against in that particular point in time, which is super interesting. There are like millions and millions and millions of readings of this movie, um, and of this story. I think because of like when the original book came out and when the movie itself came out and like everything that is presented to us in the movie. So there's like a ton of different like political theories that are tied to this, or like economic theories that are tied to this. Obviously like the psychology aspect and like where it sits within a historical context is like super interesting. I feel like there's like too much there for us to even get into, and I am like always happy to have that conversation. And this is one of the few movies where I watched it and I was just like, I had none of that like rattling in my brain. It was just like, ooh, flying monkeys. Ooh, yellow brick road. ooh, ruby shoes, um,
Well, it seems
which
like it's so
is
simple, and it's like it's almost like the popularity of it maybe took those into more complex places than this movie, which is kind of fairly simple on its core. I did think of a question to ask you though that was kind of interesting. Even though you haven't seen Wicked yet,
yeah,
obviously you're probably aware that it takes a one of those revisionist sequel type things where they make the villain
yeah,
kind of like a misunderstood kind of deal.
yeah.
What do you think about that trend in general? And is that part of what you're worried about with Wicked? Because obviously, from the perspective of the original movie, the Wicked Witch is pretty much just straight up wicked.
Yeah, I find it hard to watch sequels that like recontextualize text that I hold so dearly. So something like that where it's like I have a very particular understanding of this movie, The Wizard of Oz, in my head. Like it has existed as a very particular story for so long, and anything that could taint or like change the way that it's colored in my brain is like very scary to me.
Right,
Especially if I think that it's something that will like diminish what I think is something that it has like so much artistic and cultural and like storytelling value. So I think part of it is that. Um, Also, like I don't know, maybe some of my resistance to Wicked is just like being like a contrarian, like that's like the big fun popular thing that everyone likes. So like I don't want to like it, even though The Wizard of Oz.
well, I think one of the things with Wicked Part 2 is gonna be difficult is apparently that's where you get a lot more of the original Wizard of Oz overlaying the plot, and, like, so that's where it's gonna feel a lot more revisionist because, in some ways, it's like, okay, the original Wizard of Oz is all Dorothy's dream, so Oz is not really even a real place, like, the Wicked Witch is a representation of this lady that's really a jerk. And so, like, but then Wicked is like a story of Oz using those characters that kind of recontextualizes it and makes use of the weird little thing that's in the end of this movie of the regular Wizard of Oz, which is probably from the book. I don't feel like they really explore it that deeply in the movie Wizard of Oz movie I'm talking about, which is the man behind the curtain. Another great iconic line slash um, kind of motif from the original, because in this movie, correct me if I'm wrong, you just rewatched it, but the wizard isn't a bad guy, but he's just hiding behind this very powerful image of himself. Isn't doesn't he say something like I'm not a good wizard, but I'm a good man?
Yeah, I think it's something to that effect. I can't remember what the line is exactly, but he's not like a like wholly evil character. Um, in the story, he's like, I guess most of the bad characters or the evil characters or the antagonists in this movie are just like kind of misunderstood. It's really everyone's misunderstood. Like the dumb scarecrow is misunderstood like by himself, as is the Tin Man and the Lion. Dorothy's misunderstood by like her family, and she misunderstands her family. The witch is misunderstood. The wizard himself is misunderstood. I don't know if that's where you were going with what you were saying about him,
This
but
this
that's
kinda I
just like
mean,
a weird little rant.
that's a really interesting, like, I don't know if that's the exact same way it is in the book, but Wicked's version of the wizard behind the curtain being more manipulative and more, like, power hungry, like, "You believe I'm this all-powerful dude, but I'm a man behind a curtain." Like, especially with certain parallels to real life, of lots of political leaders who have been these tiny little men with these larger than life images of themselves that just gain so much control. Like, that's an interesting route to me to explore. It's really where it dovetails with,
Hmm.
like, the Dorothy story that's gonna be a little tough, but I think it's an interesting
Yeah, like it's
way
an
to go.
interesting.
Yeah. And also because I mean, it makes sense too if you're going down that road to also be like the Wicked Witch is propaganda, of the wizard. That just falls right in line. I will say though, in Wicked, it feels a little weird because I never thought about the Great Witch of the North and the Wicked Witch of the West going to college together, or that there exists college in Oz. It's just like, and especially a college called Shiz University. Like,
Shiz University.
that's the name of the college.
That sounds like a college from like a sketch comedy show.
It's a Key
Like,
and
come on,
Peele.
dude, we're going to Shiz. Yeah, we're going to Shiz University. That
Uh,
is weird. Is it just a university for witches, or is it like a university for everything? Can
it's
you
just
study scarecrow sciences there,
it's
or
very unclear.
Tin Man?
It's very unclear. Um, but there's very few witches there, if any,
Okay.
except for Elphaba, which is the name of the Wicked Witch in this story. So there's no, yeah, like, yeah, even the Good Witch is not really a witch at that point, or maybe at any point. So like, there's really not. It's not a college for witches, which kind of makes sense. I mean, because Oz doesn't have like 800 witches running around. There's like four, but by that same
Just
token,
the three that we know of, and maybe a neutral witch of the south.
the three witches that we know of all go to Shiz around the same time, which just is like, why? Like, why? But but other than that, but it still plays very fun. But yeah, it's kind of a weird musical aspect of that. Like, it doesn't actually really make much sense. But anyway, that's Wicked. We can get back on Wizard of Oz. I don't know what topics where you want to go with this. I know we haven't talked too much about the production value yet, just a little bit.
Talk to me. What you got?
Well, I mentioned this already on our Black Narcissus episode, but man, like the practical set of Oz is so beautiful and amazing to me because like CGI technically sometimes looks more real than practical, obviously because you can like get away from like
Hmm.
a painted set. Like when you see Oz, you can tell that the sky doesn't go on. Like you can tell there's a wall that's painted, but it's so beautiful. It's like more magical than like CGI with its uncanniness, that like the practical effect of Oz is more magical and more like you can suspend your disbelief better, even seeing the sky
Hmm.
painted on than when you see this computer imagery. Especially, I mean, obviously that's not true of all movies that come out now. Like Avatar, maybe is so in depth that maybe you could say that Dune feels very like real. But for the most part, the Wizard of Oz simple like the beauty of that set design just transports you, regardless of the fact that you know that it's like a stage.
Yeah, there's a lot to a movie feeling like a movie, and I think having these like grand sets and like the matte paintings for like the backgrounds and stuff, as opposed to like trying to recreate this recreation of like real life or something that we like think this would look like in real life, or like what it would resemble in real life, as opposed to this movie is trying to communicate a very specific feeling about this dreamlike land that is Oz, and making it feel like that through all of the set design, through all the production design, helps this movie feel like a movie in all of the most exciting ways. I don't need like naturalistic or like realistic acting from the people portraying, you know, the Cowardly Lion or the Tin Man or the Scarecrow or the Wicked Witch or Oz, right? Like one of my least favorite critiques of movies is when people say like referring to dialogue, when people say people don't talk like that in real life. Well, yeah, it's not fucking real life. It's a movie. And like in movies, people talk like they're in movies because that's how movies are supposed to move and feel. And this movie looks and feels like a movie. There's a lot of like overacting or like very theatrical acting that's done by a lot of the folks in this movie, like the physical performances from I think from the guy who plays the Tin Man, the guy who plays the Scarecrow, and the guy who plays the Cowardly Lion is like out of this world. Obviously, there's good stuff that that like Judy Garland and others are doing too, but those three in particular, and like I just like don't know that someone would be allowed to have that theatrical of a performance in something today. Like, if we're thinking about Wicked, it probably plays more so like this is like how real life witches would talk to each other when they're at Shiz University, as opposed to no, like let's move around in goofy ways. Let's have the set look a particular way because we were trying to communicate these feelings about this land of Oz. So sorry that I went on that ramble, but
No,
I
totally.
do think that all of the set and production design in this is spectacular and is like a huge, huge, huge part of why we like love this movie so much, of like why it's essential.
No, that's exactly the road that I was thinking about, was talking about going down. So the the yellow brick road, if you will. So another thing that you said early, that caught my brain, because I think this is an issue with this movie, not an issue with the movie, but like you said that pretty much everyone like loves this movie. Everybody's seen this movie. You don't really have anybody that like that talks bad about this movie. Um, I think that's pretty much true from my experience too. But I feel like, and tell me if you feel this way. I think that this movie is so popular and so well known that
Mm-hmm.
film buffs to a degree kind of don't treat it with the reverence that maybe it even deserves. Like they're like, that is a classic film, but it's like too popular, too normy. So it's like they don't. So I'm like, to me, it's like, man, this is a. I mean, it's so seminal. It's so important to whatever came. It's beautiful. It's well acted. You know, to me, it's like I feel like some people kind of dismiss it slightly just because of its popularity.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's like this movie is obviously a technical marvel. Like it really changed the way that we thought about the use of color in cinema. So not to say that like cinema fans or like film buffs don't give it the respect because it's not like as technically sound, or like I also don't want to say that it's not like that like radical or like revolutionary of a movie, because it also is in those regards. Um but I think there is just something to this movie holding such a strong place in pop culture that it then like right like part of the thing of being a film buff is
It's
you
like,
get to do the contrarian thing.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
too
but
obvious. So you're like, well, that's not, that'd be too boring to include. So you're like, but it's like, well,
yeah,
it's still,
this can't be in my letterbox top 4 because everyone loves this movie so much. But like if this is one of your favorite movies, that's cool, because this movie is it kicks ass. It's really good. And
it's
there's
similar
there's
to,
no shame in celebrating this movie, which I think is something. I think that's what you're trying to get at, right?
yeah, right, right. It's similar to Titanic, which I think now people can, with this movie too. People can have an actual issue with Titanic or this movie, but there's a lot of people who really like think Titanic is great, but it's another one of those where it's so popular, it's just too it's too on the nose to treat it like that. So you just kind of go some other routes. But that's interesting. I'm glad that you agree, because that's how I felt sometimes. I'm glad that it's finally in the canon. It took a while, but that's mostly because we had to add all these older movies to the canon late.
Yeah, it was absurd that this wasn't in the canon. Like this is like the most obvious movie to be in the canon, which is why it's the premiere for or the first episode for this season. Um, and yeah, like I've always loved The Wizard of Oz. I don't think that it's like lame or corny or like too mainstream or normy to like this movie. Like, right, I have young nieces, and this is a movie that I would totally show to them and be like, this is like why movies are awesome. This is an example of that, as opposed to like trying to like, show them like, I don't know, some like cool, like off the beaten path animated movie or something. Like, yeah, this movie, sometimes think popular things are popular for a reason, right? When you go to Paris, you go to see the Eiffel Tower, um, because it is one of the most amazing things that you will ever see. And it's a popular normie thing to do because it's one of the most amazing things you will ever see. And there is nothing embarrassing about participating in something that is popular for all of the right reasons. If it's something worth celebrating, you should still celebrate it no matter how much other people are celebrating it. And that is how I feel about something like The Wizard of Oz.
Very perfectly put.
Jacob, do you have any other thoughts about The Wizard of Oz before we get into our recommendations?
That pretty well covers it. We've talked about most of the major players except for one that there's not a whole lot maybe to say about, but obviously a star of the show, Toto. Um, you know,
Oh yeah,
absolutely adorable little puppy, um, and probably the
good
most
movie
iconic,
dog. Maybe probably the best movie dog.
probably the most iconic movie dog of all time. So I can't I I can't think of a movie dog that would be more recognizable than Toto. So
The only other one that I can think of is Airbud, and like I love Airbud, but Airbud doesn't hold a candle to Toto.
yeah, not close to Toto.
So
Yeah.
shout out Toto, the real star of the show. We also, probably a good thing, didn't talk about the James Franco Wizard of Oz movie that came out like 10 years ago.
I
Oz,
yeah,
the
I
Good
didn't
and
see it.
Powerful or whatever. I've never seen it. I heard it was dog shit. So,
There was also a sequel to this original, right? Like, but it was weird. It was Return to Oz, and it was like it's a very weird movie. Apparently, I haven't seen
oh,
it. But it's not.
you
It's
know
not
what?
like
I don't even know if I knew that that existed.
it's not like a. I mean, it's not like they got Judy Garland back and got the gang back together. So I don't know if it's a sequel. I'm not even
Hmm.
sure it's from the same studio, but it was a Return to Oz film. But it's apparently wild. Like, and some people love it because it's so wild. But it's totally tonally different and everything. So I haven't seen it, but it's out there.
That's very fair. There is one other thing that I want to ask you about, because it was originally going to be in my recommendations, but I kind of mentioned it on the front end. So I just want to ask you now. I assume the answer is no, but did you ever participate in the you smoke a little weed, you smoke a doobie, and then you throw in Wizard of Oz and you time it up to listen to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, and allegedly the album lines up with the movie. And if you play it twice or three times through, it lines up with the entire movie, which I've never done. I only did one time through with the first part of the movie.
That's very interesting. I have seen about that. I'm a good Christian boy, uh, and it's illegal to smoke a doobie here in Alabama. So no, I've never smoked a doobie while watching The Wizard of Oz. But I have not tried that yet. In part because I do still want to like hear the dialogue and everything. Um, I don't know how that
Fair.
that works with it. Um, but again, it's also not like I'm
There's
sitting
no
around watching.
there's no dialogue.
It's not like I've been sitting around watching Wizard of Oz like a ton to do that. Like, I haven't really
Mhm.
rewatched it front to back. barely ever. So I need to do that probably first before I experience it in a totally new light that way. But it sounds like a fun
Yeah.
time.
Well, you can do it without the doobie and still just queue up Dark Side of the Moon with the movie. I think you're supposed to. I think it's on the third Lion Roar that you start the album. But so when I did it, I mean, this isn't the fun way to do it. When I did it, there was a YouTube video or like YouTube videos that had the sound already synced up. But I feel like part of the fun is turning the movie on, putting your TV on mute, and putting the vinyl on at the right moment, pausing the movie when the vinyl ends, flipping it over, starting the vinyl and restarting the movie at the same time and going through it that way. I don't think that like they actually wrote the album to line up with the movie, but like when done correctly, when she opens the door is when the bass line for Money comes in, which is like super fun. And when she's like outside in the tornado is the Great Gig in the Sky, where they're like just like it's basically just like a woman like yelling singing. So like there are moments where it's like, oh yes, this oddly lines up, but obviously the idea that they were like doing that intentionally is bananas, but still a very fun uh thing to participate in after you've seen this movie a couple of times.
Yeah, no, I definitely doubt that it was intentional, but sometimes the best things are unintentional. And again, everyone lives with
Yeah.
this so in their bones. It just probably was like when they're making this album, they probably had the Wizard of Oz running in the background of their brain,
Yeah.
and so they're just like unknowingly creating that great synergy. Um, before we get into Rex,
A weird
really
happy accident. Yeah.
fun fact: in Alabama, I would actually be safer smoking an actual marijuana doobie than a hemp cigarette as of July, which it's a misdemeanor to smoke marijuana or possess marijuana, and it's a felony to possess a smokable hemp. So, okay.
Another win for marijuana. There we go. Sweet, sweet Mary Jane. There we go. Well, with that, I think we can get into some recommendations for The Wizard of Oz. Jacob, you know the rules. I assume most of our listeners know the rules. We're recommending 3 things to check out. For folks who love The Wizard of Oz, at least one has to be another movie. Other 2 things, any and everything else, TV shows, albums, uh, whatever else folks can think of. So yeah, what do you say? Let's get into it. We'll
Ready
we'll
for
do
it.
some recos and get out of here. So whenever you're ready, give us your first recommendation for The Wizard of Oz.
So, my first recommendation, it would have been very easy to recommend Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes, which I've already recommended
Mm-hmm.
for their great other film, Black Narcissus, on the pod with the tie into the Ruby Red Shoes. But I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to recommend another Powell and Pressburger film. Came out in 1946 called A Matter of Life and Death, which I don't love as much as The Red Shoes or The Wizard of Oz, but the connection
Mm-hmm.
to The Wizard of Oz is the use of color because A Matter of Life and Death specifically has that brilliant Technicolor as all Powell and Pressburger films do. Um, but interestingly, it's like a swap on The Wizard of Oz, whereas when Dorothy is in Kansas, it's in that sepia tone, and then she opens the door to the fantasy world of
Mm-hmm.
Oz and walks into color. A Matter of Life and Death is a story about a man who was supposed to die and continues to live on Earth, and an angel is sent from heaven to come and like collect him, basically. And Earth is portrayed in beautiful Technicolor, while heaven is black and white and very sterile. Um, and so that kind of flip of the fantastical is black and white and sterile, and
Mm-hmm.
the reality is Technicolor, is an interesting swap within the 10 years of The Wizard of Oz, and it's a beautiful movie to look at. Regardless, like the plot is kind of here and there, but like the it's always a visual
Mhm.
feast. So
I love that. That's great. I gotta watch that. Amazing recommendation. Big fan. I like where you're at. I am going to follow you down the path or follow you down the yellow brick road of talking about the ruby red slippers, which, like we said, may be one of the most famous movie props of all time. And if you want to see said movie prop, you can go to Washington D.C. and in the Smithsonian, they have like a whole wing or like separate museum really dedicated to pop culture. So I'm not recommending going there, but I am going to recommend a movie based on that museum, Night at the Museum 2. Unironically, I kind of love the Night at the Museum franchise.
I mean, honestly, I grew up enjoying it. Too. I mean, Owen Wilson is fun as his little miniature self, and you got Robin
Yeah.
Williams as Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, come on, and also, is it Night at the Museum too? Is that the one with Rami Malek?
I think he's
Um,
in all of them.
is he in all of them? He's in the first one too, yeah. But that that scene,
Yeah.
his is a bit of a lisp that he has, and his "Do not cross this line." That is, I mean, that's just
Yeah.
genuinely hilarious. I
It, it,
like that.
it it's a fun series. So yeah.
Yeah,
And if you are in
I'm not
DC,
gonna
you should
shame
go.
I'm not gonna shame a
Uh,
national a Night at the Museum pick at all. Okay, so back to
hell
me.
yeah.
I'm gonna do something that I don't
Yeah.
do very often and recommend a film that I have not seen. But if you want to take the plunge with me, I'm putting this on my list. Doing some research for this movie, and that is a film that came out a couple of years before The Wizard of Oz. It came out in 1936. It is the first American film directed by Fritz Lang called Fury, about a man who is mistaken as a case of mistaken identity, is almost killed by a lynch mob, and then seeks revenge. That's what I know about it. That's just what the synopsis says. And that doesn't sound like it connects very much to The Wizard of Oz, but there is a cast crossover, is the reason that I chose this movie. It stars Terry as Rainbow. And you're like, who is Terry? Terry is Toto. So before
Nice.
before eventually being renamed Toto because of the popularity from The Wizard of Oz, the
Hmm.
terrier that played Toto was named Terry and starred in a couple of
Nice.
movies, including a movie with Shirley Temple and this movie Fury as the dog Rainbow. So America's favorite movie dog. Check. I don't know how much screen time Terry has as Rainbow. It could be like two
Yeah.
minutes, but the movie's got a 4.0 on Letterboxd. It's
Worth
Fritz
checking out.
Lang. You can't go wrong.
No, that's a great choice. We failed to mention that Shirley Temple was the original choice for the lead in this movie, but it
That
ended up
makes a
going to
lot of
Judy
sense.
Garland instead.
I did
Which,
not know that.
yeah, makes a ton of sense. But obviously, we're happy that it worked out the way that it did. For my second recommendation, I'm going to go with a TV show. So we were talking before about all the famous lines that came out of this movie, including lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And you might be wondering, where can you go to see lions and tigers and bears? And the answer is college football, which is right around the corner. So I'm recommending College Game Day because it's the best college football pregame show, maybe the best sports pregame show out there. So you can find some Penn State Nittany Lions, you can find some LSU Tigers, you could find some Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati Bears, or are they Bearcats? Either way,
Bearcats.
you can
Bearcats.
find lions and tigers
So
and bears
you can find
all over
bears.
college football. So
Cal. I think
college
Cal's
game
bears.
day is my second. Yeah, Cal is the Bears. There we go. Golden
Yeah.
Bears. Boom.
Not the Bears, but
College game
the
day.
Bears. College
Yeah.
game day. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the Lee Corso, God rest his soul, won't be there much longer. I think he might be on
Yeah.
part of
Well,
the
he's not dead
season.
yet.
He's not dead yet, no, but he is actually
He's on.
retiring. He is going
I
to
think he's
leave the
doing
show.
one show.
Yeah, I think he's doing
He's
maybe
doing
one.
the first. He's doing
I've
doing the
had a
kickoff,
recurring
and then that's it.
I've had a recurring fear over the last few seasons that he would just put put a mascot head on and die on the show. So I'm glad that he is going to have some
I mean, it
dignity
could still happen.
and not have that
Yeah.
nightmare unfold on the screen. Um, I love Lee Corso, really do, but it's obvious he he needed to retire. So yeah, looking very forward to that. Okay, my final recommendation uh, is going to just be silly. Um, the new Fantastic Four movie is out. I'm not doing Josh Trank joke today. Uh, so
Everyone was waiting for it.
my third recommendation is another movie about a protagonist who goes to sleep and wakes up and the world looks different and they are soon pursued by a flying green villain who is actually someone they know in their real life. Any ideas?
A recent movie.
Depends on your word of recent. It's in this century. It's been since the turn of been after 2000.
Dude, I don't know. I'm stumped. A
The
green
answer is
person? A flying green person.
yes. The protagonist goes to sleep, wakes up, and the world looks different. Pursued by a flying green villain that is actually someone they know in their regular life.
Is it Sam Raimi's Spider-Man?
It is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Good detective work right
Is it
now.
actually?
Yeah, it is.
Wait, that's insane. Also, I think that's in the canon. So
Okay, well, you know,
that's
Wicked.
but we'll honestly we'll take it. The way that you were able to tie that together is
For
wild.
some reason, I assumed that Spider-Man 2 was in the canon, and so I just
Well,
didn't put
that's what it should
Spider-Man.
be. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Also, I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that guess. That
That
was
I mean, you
I don't know
did.
how I pulled that, but
You
I mean
untangled the web.
you're
Um, I
you were
was
giving good clues.
I was looking. I was thinking of my recommendations because I was like at lunch today. I was like, I don't have any recommendations. I forgot that's like a thing I need to prepare for, and so I was like, what can I do that's like creative at all? And then I was like, this is kind of funny. So there you have it. And of course,
I
the
love it.
world looks
That's
different because
amazing.
his eyesight after he's bit by a
Mhm.
spider.
For those not watching on YouTube, I just did my best Tobey Maguire impression, which was very bad. For my final recommendation, I am going to follow you down the path of recommending a movie that I have not seen, which is embarrassing on the front end. And I'm also, this is going to be a side or a way for me to sneak in another recommendation for a project, Jacob, that you and I are launching away from Screenage Wasteland. But I'm recommending The Wiz, which pains me to say out loud that I've never seen. The very famous, very black take on The Wizard of Oz, um, starring Michael Jackson and oh my god, who plays Dorothy? This is so embarrassing. I'm gonna get my black card revoked. Oof. this is tough. But yeah, I haven't seen it. I need to watch it. And me saying this out loud and recommending it is my way of creating accountability so that I do someday soon get my ass on the couch in front of the TV watching The Wiz. But I preview the project that you and I have because The Wiz, obviously, like I said, a very black take on The Wizard of Oz. And we are starting Movies in Black and White, which is available now wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube and all that other good stuff, where Jacob and I are discussing race and film. It's separate from the Screen Age Wasteland world. So if you want to hear more of us not in or connected to Screen Age Wasteland, you can check us out there talking about things like what happens when you make a movie that's The Wizard of Oz, but black, and other related topics. So my final recommendation is The Wiz and also a little bit Movies in Black and White. So
I mean,
there you have
by
it.
the rules of
Those
the
are
canon,
recommendations.
you could have just straight recommended Movies in Black and White. This movie is kind of in black and white. It's really sepia, so maybe that wouldn't quite work. Like, but if it had been really black and white, you could say, what else is
Yeah.
talking about movies in black and white? Listen to our podcast.
I think they shot it in black and white and then added the sepia tone in post production. I don't think it was like shot with a sepia filter. So
We can talk
I
about,
don't know if that counts for anything.
green face, silver face, lion
Yeah.
face.
Is it Diane Ross?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Oh,
Yeah, I just looked it up.
God damn it.
I was not aware. I knew Michael Jackson played the Wizard of Oz, but that's the extent of my The Wiz knowledge. Although I think there was a live,
Yeah.
wasn't there a live performance of The Wiz recently? But I did not watch. I was aware that it was happening.
I think so. Again, I gotta step my game up. So there you have it. That's The Wizard of Oz. That's The Wiz. The canon is back. Season 6, baby. We got a lot of fun stuff lined up. Jacob will be back at some point. I'm forgetting right now which episode or episodes he will be back on, but we will be hearing from him. You'll also be hearing from all of your other Screen Age Wasteland favorites and repeat Saw or repeat canon guests. So it should be fun. Next week, we're going to be talking Superman 1978, maybe tie in a little bit of Superman 2025 chatter with that as well. Can't wait for it. We actually don't have a guest as of yet, so we'll see what happens there. But Screenagers, as always, we very much so appreciate you spending time with us. We will be back here talking Superman next week on the same feed, wherever it is that you're listening to us, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Amazon, and also on the Screen Age Wasteland YouTube page. If you want to check us out there, you can check us out on the website proper, screenagewasteland.com. We've got a ton of great stuff coming out, more articles, more canon episodes. We will be back here next week with another essential movie. And as always, in the meantime, we will see all of you lovely folks in the wasteland. Bye, everyone.
See ya.